Welcome back to the show, Reds. This is the Shankly Sessions, the Liverpool podcast we bring you each and every week on the upper tier. If you could head out to YouTube and smash that subscribe and bell notification button, and of course, drop a like on the video. This is your delayed match reaction for West Ham 1, Liverpool 2. Great result for the Reds. Kind of keeps the hope going. But some interesting comments from the gaffer after the game yesterday, which we'll talk about shortly. We'll also be talking about the game and how it panned out. We'll drop some player ratings. We'll talk about the handball and Moisey going crazy over the handball, of course. We'll talk, of course, about these two men chipping in with the goals. Two very, very good goals. What a bullet header from Matip, of course, on 67 minutes, as you can see down below. Cody with a nice little finish as well. That Fabianski probably won't be too happy about, bounce kind of in front of him, but he put it in after 18 minutes, of course. And Paqueta, of course, scoring on 12 minutes, opening the score. Wolves 1-0. So it was nice to see us not only going down 1-0, not nice to see us going down 1-0, but the fact that we were able to claw back and stuff like that. We didn't lose our minds. Normally, when we've gone down 1-0 this season, we've kind of let it slip a little bit and we've lost our confidence and gone crazy and tried different things and it hasn't worked and stuff like that. So it was nice to see that we kept our focus, we kept at it. Warren, how are you, my friend? Warren in the comments. Hi, Niall. I hope you're okay. I'm absolutely fantastic, Warren. Delayed match reaction today because I tell you, folks, I don't know what it was last night. I was flicking around all the games. I had a couple of screens going here. It was hard to focus on any one game. I was quite excited for the Arsenal, the Man City Arsenal game. It was like, it's tough, and it's tough on you Arsenal fans out there. I know it, and I've said it on a couple of the other lads' channels, Del Boy and stuff like that, Kyle and Warren, of course. I know how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. I've been living it for 5 years. We did it once. Imagine how I felt last season. Warren in the chat there, he's broken, absolutely broken. I know, Warren, and it's just, and the thing about it is, the worst thing about it is, City only get better and better and better every time Pep makes a change, sends out personnel, brings in new players. They get better and better and better and raise the bar. No doubt about it. I know exactly how you're feeling today. Uh, Warren's in. I don't want to be negative, but they could have had 9. They absolutely could have. Like only for Ramsdale. Another few could have went in as well. And you can see as well, I've often spoken about, and I know this is not quite the Liverpool game. We will get into it, of course. But it's like, I've spoke about it, how ruthless Pep is and how he's able to kind of download that ruthlessness into his players. So the way I kind of describe it is, you look at a perfect example was last night. 3-1 up, coasting in the game. I know Holding got his goal and stuff like that, but the game was done. Let's be honest, the game was done. And even in you have Haaland there, right? And you would think big games coming up, big game against Fulham at the weekend. If they win it, they go top because Arsenal are playing at the weekend. So that's absolutely massive. And you would think at 3-0 or 3-1, Pep would go, right, let's start pulling some players off here and stuff like that. Leaves Haaland on, absolutely ruthless, and Haaland in whatever it is, the 94th, 95th minute, scoring. That's how driven that team are, and that's how driven you have to be to beat this team. You have to have a drive and a ruthlessness that's above and beyond Man City. And we can sit here and we can talk about, investment. We can throw shade at it in terms of oil money. We can talk about the financial irregularities that are hanging over them, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what happens on the pitch. And those boys are absolutely ruthless. Haaland could barely even see what he was doing last night with his hair floating around and stuff like that, and still just slid in there with a sublime pass and puts it by Ramsdale and didn't even catch it clean. It was probably the one shot he took on the night that he didn't catch clean, and it went in. Morris is in. How are you, Morris? Make sure you're checking out both these boys' channels as well. They're absolutely fantastic. Any updates on Pochettino? Oh, man, Don't talk to me about Chelsea. Good Lord. We'll be talking tonight. Don't forget, folks, 9 o'clock tonight, Thursday Tier Talk. Myself and Dazzler will be on. And we will be talking about Chelsea. There's no doubt about it. It's just... I was listening to Cundy today on Talk Sport, and he was talking about if there was 12 games to go, Chelsea would be fully in a relegation battle. Isn't that scary? Like, scary. And what's Lampard now? 1 win in 19 or something like that? Man, it's just it's mad. See, this is the real problem as well. The problem is when you're bought out by billionaires, and it's a word of warning towards United as well. If the Glazers do sell to Qatar, if that doesn't work out, and I'm not saying it will or it won't, but if it doesn't work out, you're kind of stuck with them. You can't get rid of them. There's no way of getting them out. It's not like their finances gets into trouble. It's not like Clear Lake and Bowley's finances are going to get into trouble. You're kind of stuck with them. You know what I mean? And these are the decisions. They can turn around at the start when they're coming into the club and promise you the sun, moon, the stars. And let's be honest, they've spent. But like, if he decides he wants to uproot Chelsea out of Stamford Bridge and move them, he can do whatever he wants. You know what I mean? You can talk about whatever you want to do and how much control you're in and this fan power and stuff like that. But when there's billionaires in there with oceans of money, like, you can't really do anything. You don't really have any power or any say. Morris back in as well. Haaland let his hair down last night and still scored. Yeah, absolutely. Just why he didn't have his hair down all night, Morris, because he should have bagged a hat-trick, to be honest. But yeah, madness last night. And that's why I'm doing the match reaction today. I'm off today, so I said I'd do it at lunchtime today because I just couldn't get it together last night. I couldn't figure out how I would speak about football, how I would speak about the West Ham game. And I said, look, you know something? I'm going to sleep on this for a night and kind of digest it and see where it lies in the morning and try and get an understanding of it. Because, especially with the West Ham Liverpool game, it was just kind of like the gaffer was kind of gassed up about the performance. But I kind of thought, like, was it that good a performance, or was it just... I know he's trying to try out different things, and we'll speak about it in his press conference, his post-match press conference, some of the things he said, which alluded to the fact that some of the things that we said a few weeks ago, I think we said, why doesn't he just start trying different things? The season's gone. We probably top four was gone. Now we still have a chance with that win. Of course, we'll be looking for Everton to do us a favour tonight. They need to do themselves a favour. They're in serious trouble. And also, we would need Tottenham tonight to do us a favour against Man United. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. Tottenham in really, really bad situation at the moment as well. So let's see what happens there. But at the moment, we're up to 6th and we're 6 points off top 4. So let's see what happens there. Any win away from home is a good win. Yeah, absolutely. And it was a good win. But he was kind of getting a little bit stoked on the performance. I know watching the match, I know we were in control for a lot of it and stuff like that. And I'm going to talk about the lineup and what I seen last night and what kind of unfolded and get people's thoughts on it and stuff like that, see what they think. But it was a real weird one. Like, it was a typical game against West Ham. If you look at our record against West Ham, they tend to always be tight games. You have to go back to 2018. I think twice in 2018 in either side of the season, the 17-18 season and 18-19 season. We bet them, I think, 4-0 and 4-1. And that's the last time we've actually dished out a beating. You know, other than that, it's the odd goal or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So they're always a tight game. They're always kind of they're not a game that tends to be overly pleasing on the eye, especially for a neutral. It's a kind of a game where you have to dig in and battle your way through it, and it's tough, and it can be messy, and it can be scrappy, and that's what they try to do, and that's what Moyes tries to do. I know a lot of the times he tries to set up to play football. You see them playing in the Europa Conference and stuff like that, and they play a nice kind of football. But with this one last night, a lot of play gets broken up. You've got 2 DMs who are probably the hardest working guys on the pitch. And we're going to talk about that DM position as well, something I noticed last night. But yeah, the goals, as I said, Paqueta on 12, giving West Ham the lead. And then I was kind of thinking, God, here we go again. You know, we had spoken the preview about how our kind of defensive issues had raised our head again. I've seen it against Forest, but we'll take the 3 points. It was a big 3 points. Gakpo on 18 equalised. Jarrett Bowen had a goal ruled out on 55. What a run and what a finish. Got to talk about Van Dijk for that Jarrett Bowen goal. I know it was disallowed by VAR, but again, showing him to his good side to the far post. Van Dijk should be clever than that. He should have been showing him to the inside, to the near post, where Ali could cover it, even if he got the shot away. Very poor from Van Dijk, standing off again. Should be getting stuck into that situation. But then on 67, we had a corner flashed in by Robbo. Forgot to mention, actually, Trent getting the assist for Gakpo's goal as well. What a ball. And Joel Matip scoring with that bullet header on 67. Free header in the box. West Ham obviously not picking up their man. They know how dangerous we can be off corners with big lads playing at the back. Matip and Van Dijk going up, and Van Dijk should have had a goal as well. But Robbo with a great corner in. Again, him with an indifferent game. We'll see it in the ratings, but did okay. But yeah, it was just a weird one, wasn't it? What did we make, folks, of the handball? What did we make of this handball? There was a lot of talk. Moyes was going ballistic over it, and a couple of the West Ham players saying it should have been a penalty. We have seen them give it, but I think if you're slipping and you're going down, where are you supposed to put your arm? You have to kind of put your arm out to break your fall. So kind of when you look at a situation like that where he's going down, it kind of is a natural position. Now, if it's me and it's my call on it, I'd be looking for a pen if that was West Ham. So I can understand why West Ham and David Moyes would have been looking for it. But it's kind of harsh if they start giving them as well. You can see the rhythm of Thiago going down. He's actually falling on the ball. So that was my thoughts really on the handball. Look, if it's for us, I'd want it, and I can see exactly why Moyes and West Ham players would have been calling for it and stuff like that. But I think it would be harsh to give it. I think if you start giving them, then you're going to have to remain consistent, and anything like that happens, you're going to have to start giving them, and then it opens up, you know. Let's talk about the formation. You have to talk about this formation. So this was kind of an interesting one, because I don't know if people picked up on it last night, but Trent was absolutely sublime last night. What has happened to Trent over the last month? He's just found that rhythm again. I don't know whether it's what Klopp is trying to do with this inverted stuff and all has refreshed him, and he's happier now because his role is being more defined as in just an attacking kind of winger and a defender type of thing. It's a bit more complex than that, and it's given him a bit more scope to do stuff. But Trent last night was everywhere. He was breaking up the play. How much play did he do in DM when Fabinho was pushed more forward? And that was an interesting change last night. And you can see Klopp is just tinkering with stuff at the moment, trying to look at stuff for the next season and stuff like that. What's going to happen? Where does it all sit and stuff like that? And I like this because we spoke about this about a month ago when things had really hit the crap and we're going, right, we've nothing really to play for. Real dumped us out and stuff like that. So we said, let's just start putting in players and let's start just trying different stuff that maybe we can find something that works in different situations for next season, and that would be really, really important. And this is what Klopp is doing now. He's kind of putting players in and he's moving it around. Last night, I think we seen Trent nearly in a DM role, because if you look at Fabinho, for a lot of the match, Fabinho was ahead of Trent, and it was Trent who was breaking up the counter play off West Ham and stuff like that. So it was really, really interesting to see that as well. And that's how it kind of worked. And again, last night we had a decent tangent there between himself and Cody. Never the two should meet in the middle, as the saying goes. But this worked really well last night. I was also refreshed as well by Fabinho as well to see him in a kind of a more forward position. But the covering of Trent last night was absolutely sublime. Of course, he was our man of the match. I know one of the sponsors or whatever it is gave it to Joel Matip as well. But Trent by far last night was man of the match. The work he is putting in now, it was only a month ago, guys, we were talking about this guy being lazy, terrible body language, didn't care anymore, had given up. People are even talking about, should we be getting rid of this guy and all this kind of thing and all, Look at the last 3 to 4 weeks. He's put in as more energy in the last 4 weeks as he's done in the whole of the season. He looks refreshed. He looks up for it. So whatever Klopp has done with Trent Alexander-Arnold in the last month, it's been absolutely brilliant, and it's starting to work a treat. Now, again, at times, that right-sided area, is left a little bit open still. And I think they're going to have to figure out what they want to do there and stuff like that. But the work rate that Trent is putting in, the amount of times he got back last night to win balls and break up play, and he was like a proper DM at times. It was mad with Fabinho a little bit further on. It just seemed to work well. And it was a battle in there as well. And we knew it was going to be a battle because we know West Ham, they're going to fight tooth and nail for everything. Because as we said in the preview, they would want to put space between themselves and the relegation battle because they've got big stuff coming up in Europe and stuff like that. And so long as they just cement their position in the Premier League, they can focus fully then on that Europa Conference semi-final and hopefully into the final. We wish them well on that. But you look at what happened there. The other thing I looked at last night, and again I was looking at Van Dijk, again just seeing little things there, just a little bit of nervousness at times, and that worries me at times because when people see him getting a little bit nervous and a bit standoffish and stuff like that, and hoofing the ball as well, that kind of nervousness or lack of confidence, as they say, kind of sometimes breathes through the team at times, you know. Joel took his goal really, really well in the second half and had a real good second half. But I think in the first half, again, he was giving up the ball a little bit too easy and stuff like that. And again, because he hadn't been in the team for a number of weeks and stuff like that, he was a little bit standoffish at times as well. Curtis was doing a lot of good work last night, you know, but just again at times when you're getting into that final moment of making that decision, he's no problem picking up the ball and going past players and stuff like that and changing back in and moving it around and being heavily involved in that link-up play. But when you get into that position and it's time to make that decision to deliver that killer moment, he just still lacks that a little bit. But it was good what the gaffer said about him, that, you know, they've had to be careful with him and stuff like that. Again, we'll get into the post-match presser in a bit. Jota had a couple of chances last night, didn't really take them. Was kind of unlucky at times. Kind of played out a little bit more like the Jota prior to the last 2 weeks where he's been scoring goals, you know, had decent chances and stuff like that. Henderson, we have to talk about, our captain, looked really, really leggy last night. Found it really, really difficult. And the amount of times, it's amazing the contrast with some of these players. Sometimes you would think they don't even train together all week. You look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, the minute he picks up the ball, everything is looking for a forward situation. How can he play a probing ball? How can he move the ball forward? How can he push us up the pitch all the time? Always looking forward. You look at Jordan Henderson at the moment, and I don't know whether it's a confidence thing in the way the season has gone or what has happened, but every time Jordan picks up the ball, he's moving back in, it's moved back around, it's recycled. It's a lot of negative stuff. And I noticed it last night on 3 occasions he picked up the ball. And there was players available ahead of him. Could have played nice little passes there, linking up with Trent or whatever it was, and chose to go back inside again to Joe or back inside to Virgil or whoever it was. I'm just thinking that's a real confidence thing there, that he's just lacking that confidence that at the moment everything is under the microscope, everything is being watched and analysed. And I'm sure he knows the heat that comes on him at times in terms of his career at Liverpool at the moment and stuff. Some of it is fair criticism. Some of it is probably unfair. He is our captain. But I think last night showed that he stood out from the rest of the team as the rest of the team was trying to progress and move forward. I've never seen Fabinho play as forward in my life in terms of pushing forward. Hence, I was talking about Trent nearly slotting into that DM role at times and playing some lovely probing passes through the channels. But Jordan last night just stuck out really, really negative on the ball again. Always recycling the ball and giving West Ham the time that they needed. And I think part of that is part of why Salah doesn't have as much success as he should. But you can see Salah's making the runs, he's making the movement, and then he gets a bit frustrated and stuff like that. And it's because every time Jordan picks up the ball, in terms of linking up with Salah, instead of linking up with him, it's recycled again and again. And before you know it, then there's 2 guys on Salah and he's taken out of the game. And I just noticed it there last night. It was so obvious where everyone was trying to be so positive and move the ball forward. Just every time it went to Hendo, it was just getting recycled back in a kind of a negative way to give West Ham the time that they needed. So I just thought I'd highlight some of those points from it last night. But really, really encouraging to see the gaffer trying different things. putting players in different positions and seeing what they can do and stuff like that. And you'll hear it even when they spoke about it on the post-match presser. They asked him about the top 4 race, and we'll get his comments in a few minutes about it as well. But really, really important. We'll take the player ratings first, right? And then after the player ratings, we'll talk about Jurgen's post-match presser, yeah? So let's start with these player ratings. I'd like to get them up. Alisson last night, the first thing I thought of with that first goal, the Paqueta goal, was, first of all, how did we allow him to get a shot away? That was absolutely shocking. But secondly, how did Ali not see it? Because it wasn't right in the top bins. It wasn't far away from him. He obviously seen it very, very late. And it did come through a body. And I'm just wondering, was he not set for it? Because it looked like, I wonder, did he realise Paqueta was going to have a shot cutting in? And I mean, if you look at that goal was a carbon copy of what we think of a Luis Diaz goal as well, isn't it? So you would think in training, you would think that Luis Diaz will be practicing that cutting in from the left onto the right and letting fly. That's kind of the goal that it was. But he had no inkling of it at all. Before you knew it, the ball was in the back of the net. And the first thing we thought of was, did he get a deflection? Did he get a wicked deflection? Did he think it was going left? Didn't get any deflection at all. Just flew straight in on the right-hand side. I think Ali probably was kind of trying to preempt, was he going to go left side? And that's what he was setting himself for. And because he set himself that way, was he totally out of balance, could never get back to catch it on the right side. But it was a weird one for Ali last night. So we give Ali just below what we want. We give him a 5. Okay, so that was Alisson. Trent. This was a kind of a weird one. He got a weird mixed bag in terms of ratings. I gave Trent last night, I gave him an 8. I thought the space that he occupied, I thought breaking up, playing that DM role with Fabinho a little bit ahead of him. I thought some of the passes that he played through the channels, the work rate that he put in, he was absolutely everywhere last night. You know what I mean? He was kind of what we want as a captain in terms of the way he played. So I gave Trent last night an 8. I think he did well, but there was a real mixed bag of ratings. It's interesting to see when you go around and you look at the different ratings on the different socials and stuff like that and all. He was anywhere from a 5 to a 9. Which is kind of weird, because you wonder, are people watching the same game and stuff like that, and think about where we've been. Joel, I gave a 7 to. I think he was reasonably solid most of the night, a bit wasteful with the ball in the first half, but absolutely took his head out well. And I think he was nominated for man of the match on one of the sponsor ones or something like that, but we gave it to Trent. Virgil, I gave a 7 to. Probably could have given a 6 as well, but I just thought there was a slight nervousness with him again last night. I didn't like that standoffish for the Bowen goal that was disallowed. On another day, that goal doesn't get disallowed. And showing him to his strong side, to the far post, you always kind of check him to the inside, to the near post, where it's easier to cover. And he just kind of stood off him a bit too much. And there wasn't that much of a space between them, but he still stood off him, which I was a bit concerned about. Robbo, I gave a 6 to. I just want a little bit more from Robbo. He just isn't giving us as much as we want at the moment. But the cross in for the Matip goal was pristine. But just needs to get more involved out there. And it's kind of you can kind of understand it a little bit as well, because he's had Jota out there. He has Darwin out there. Just kind of a mix all the time. So it's very hard to find your rhythm, especially when you've spent years just hooking up with Mane, so interesting one. Hendo, as I said, Hendo last night, at times forced to fill in the gaps, of course, when Trent is doing his thing, which is, this is not something that I put up on a perch. This is part of the job. This is how we set up. But I gave Hendo a 6 last night. I just thought his play within the group, when you looked at everyone, was just a little bit negative, and at times it slowed us down a bit too much. Fabinho, just at times, I did like him a little bit more forward. I think he was more involved. But because he hadn't been doing a lot of that this season, seemed to pick the wrong pass on a continuous basis. But certainly got involved. And it was nice to see in the second half as well, in that DM role as well. He was coming back and winning balls and stuff like that. Again, an unusual one for being Fabinho. So let us know, even on the replay, if you're looking at it in the comments. let us know. Some of these ratings are sort of vastly spread. There's quite a range when you look across the ratings and stuff like that. I don't think Fabinho was as bad as what people kind of were putting out there last night. Curtis, I gave a 6-2. Again, the kid has bags of ability, but just in those moments when that decision has to be made to make something happen, just lacks that decision making. Mo, I gave a 6-2 as well. I didn't think Mo was at his best last night. And again, I think a lot of it was just the play on that side was way more negative with Jordan. And I just think it's very hard then for Mo Salah then to kind of do stuff. Um, Kind of expelling a lot of energy, not achieving a whole lot as well. And we've seen that this season. That when that triangle on that side doesn't work for Mo Salah, he tends to be out of the game. Cody, I gave an A2, absolutely dropped deep, causing West Ham plenty of problems. Was absolutely brilliant. Scored a great equaliser as well. Took his goal really, really well, which I like to see. Jota, I gave a 6-2 as well. And it's interesting, the gaffer in his post-match was talking a lot about the performance and stuff like that and how happy he was with the performance and the possession and all that kind of stuff. Like if you look at the ratings here in terms of the players, there's a lot of sixes in it, which would lead you to believe like how good a performance was it. It was a hard-fought performance, as it always is against West Ham. But I think when we look back on the season, I don't think the West Ham game is going to be one that we'd be pulling out as a benchmark for certain things, Jota, again, had a couple of chances and didn't take them and kind of was a little bit out of the game. If you look at the subs, Thiago came on, made a difference in the Liverpool midfield. Of course, his passing is really, really good and stuff like that. I haven't noticed him getting as stuck in as he was prior to the injury. Maybe he's just because he's back in, he's just being careful and stuff like that. But certainly he does improve the midfield greatly. Luis Diaz came on, looked lively as ever. You know what you're going to get with Luis Diaz. You're going to get a bag of energy. You're going to get a player in a positive mindset that picks up the ball and goes at people and stuff. And then Darwin came on, didn't really give him a rating. And obviously James Milner came on, didn't give him a rating. In terms of Jurgen, gave the gaffer last night a 6 out of 10. Probably give him a 7 maybe. Obviously he's trying different things to see what's working and what isn't. And I think a lot of what he's doing here is I think he's recognized, or it's being made very clear, that there isn't going to be a huge budget there to blow on players like he might want to. So he's going to have to figure out how he moves things around and fills in certain gaps, maybe with the potential of 2, maybe 3 players coming in when we know we probably need more, considering what we're going to lose off our bench as well, what's going out the door. So maybe that's what he's trying to look at. He's looking at it, if he can get Trent to work like that in midfield, is that like an extra midfielder, even though then we'd have to figure out the right back situation. And just little things like that. Cody, I think, is settling in nicely into the Bobby Firmino role, as we call it. So I'm sure he's happy with that. But I do think there's still kind of an inkling. Let's talk about the presser. Let's talk about the press conference. So this is kind of the main points that came out of the press conference, which is quite interesting. So I'll just change that up so I can actually read it. We poor old eyes after all the football last night. First of all, he said, we stayed calm, kept playing, scored our screamer as well, and controlled the game. Klopp explained, I'm not 100% sure, but it felt like around 80% possession. It was a high percentage of possession. We did keep calm. We didn't panic when the goal went in like we have in the past. And that was nice to see that. And a lot of that is down to that's the way we used to be, kind of experienced in that way. Not the panic, stick to our game plan. We know it will bear fruit, and that's what we should be sticking to. So I liked to see that kind of comment in there. He said on the Thiago handball, I think we all agreed on it. He said, I heard now about the handball. I thought he just fell on the ball, but I can see why Moisey would think different. Absolutely. So on another day, a ref could give it. I don't think it's the kind of ones that refs should be given. But on another day, he could have easily given it, and we've seen them given. So yeah, it was an interesting one to get his take on that. And of course, he could see if it was us, we'd be looking for the penalty. Acers is in. West Ham should have got something from the game. Yeah, absolutely. They created chances, and that's why I'm thinking, even with the amount of possession we had, in terms of the talk of the performance and stuff like that, Um, in terms of Curtis Jones, he said Liverpool had to deal super carefully with Jones given his injury issues, but insisted that he is doing really well as he becomes increasingly involved in starting lineups. And that's something that we've said in the past about Curtis Jones as well. That in terms of his play, it's very hard to find a rhythm if you're not involved in the team and getting game time and then just being thrown in and expected to perform. So he's getting a bit of a run of games here at the moment. We know Thiago at the moment is aging. We know that he's injury prone, so we have to find a solution in terms of those things. So, do we bring in a player? Do we look at Curtis in there? What way do we do it? But certainly getting more game time will certainly help the lad out and trying to figure out, is he at the level that we want or should we cut him loose? He was then talking about the defending. He says, we defend completely different. We do, absolutely, we defend completely different, was his description of events, adding that the readiness to defend was a major factor in Liverpool's progress. So I think he's been talking over the last few weeks about how we have found that kind of way of defending now. Of course, you wouldn't think that looking at the Forest game, and certainly you wouldn't think it looking at the goal, the West Ham goal last night, how that guy came in through two players, went across another player and got that shot away. It's quite alarming, So I wouldn't be totally in agreement with him there. It is a different way of defending, yeah, but I wouldn't say it's one that's absolutely sustainable. Um, you're saying handball given for that in the box. Yeah, we have seen them. We have seen them, but the question is, do you believe that they're the handballs that should be given? Just because we've seen them doesn't necessarily means that it's right. And I think if a player is going down, he has to put his arm down to break his fall. And he came kind of down on the ball. Didn't look like he was going down to handle the ball. So it wasn't deliberate. Then he was asked about John Henry. Of course, John Henry was at the game. We haven't seen John Henry at a game in a while, but he was at the game. And he said he was last night. He was last night in the hotel, and we had already talks. Klopp divulged before continuing to say, "I knew that he would come." Yeah, absolutely. So he knew that John Henry would be at the game, but they had conversations and they had talks. And let's just see how that goes, because those cards are always kept very close to the chest. This was the one that I was interested in talking about. He was talking about he was asked about the top four race, and he said he doesn't see the team in a top four race. He's taking it kind of game by game, so he's only looking as far as the Spurs game at the weekend, and that's how it should be. And I think when we were trying to drive for that European spot last time, I think it was 18-19, was it, or 17-8, whichever it was, that weird season when we had all the injuries and stuff like that. This is what he mentioned in that season as well. He mentioned that it was game by game, and so long as you kept on accumulating your 3 points and moving to the next game. And we have a good opportunity to do this now, because we're going to play Spurs at the weekend, who are not in the best form at the moment. And again, we have a run of home games as well, so we should be able to put points on the board and maybe put a little bit of pressure on that top four race. Let's see what happens. It is a stretch, but it could happen. You just never know with the way results are going in this league at the moment. But I like the way he was talking about how he wasn't necessarily thinking about the top four race, and he was thinking more about trying different things, like the stuff he's doing with Trent, maybe the stuff he's doing with Curtis, and what he's trying to figure out up front as well in terms of his front men. What's the kind of mix, Cody in the kind of Bobby role? What way is that working? Darwin in the middle or Darwin out on the left? How does that conundrum work with Jota there? Luis Diaz coming in. How does he continue to get the best out of Mo Salah and stuff like that? And he's trying different stuff. And then again at the back as well. So it's good to see that he's trying different kind of things, and that the team in certain moments can move into different formations, because at times we've seen this season when he does change out the formation, what's happened is players have gone onto the pitch. They haven't got a clue what their job is. It gets totally disjointed and we get overrun. That's what we've seen when they've tried to deploy different things. Now, when he's trying different things, they're obviously training it a lot more, or they're doing more work on the training ground. So, because we only have the one game a week as well. So it looks a bit more when they change things up, it looks a bit more natural, like we kind of know what we're doing and we're in control of what we're doing, and we have a proper reason why we're doing it. Acer's back in again. Pep is just ruthless and it's never settled for second best. Absolutely ruthless. Ruthless at a high level, ruthless in terms of players, ruthless in terms of his ambition, ruthless in the moment within games. I think Spurs could beat United tonight. Well, if Spurs were to beat United tonight now, we could have a very interesting, and if Everton were to beat Newcastle, and I know that's a stretch, we could have a very interesting top four race, but let's see how it goes. Certainly, we will be relying on teams to do us a favour to get back into that race. And certainly Brighton, obviously on the back of their disappointment with the FA Cup semi-final. They fell off again last night, I think, to Nottingham Forest. So let's see what happens. And of course, we're having a fantastic season in terms of the title race, the top four, the European spots, and the relegation battle. It's really shaping up over the next 5 to 6 weeks to be an outstanding end to the season. Morris, on my lunch break, watching the upper tier. Be finished work at 8:15, so I hope to have the kids to bed by 9 with a glass of Jameson. Lovely. The perfect Thursday evening to sail into the weekend. Wash away that disappointment of last night, of course, and get back on it and let's see what happens. Remember, I know a lot of people are saying, okay, it's in City's hands now and stuff like that, and we'll be talking about it in depth tonight on the show and stuff. And it is, but look, anything can happen in this league, you know what I mean? And listen, I know I've been there wishing that anything can happen. I sat in this room watching that Leicester game when Company unloaded that ball at Kasper Schmeichel, and I couldn't believe it. I thought Leicester were going to do us a favour, and they're just ruthless. It just doesn't happen. And it was interesting as well. I was listening yesterday to Robbie off AFTV was marching around doing his Martin Luther King sort of march and all that kind of stuff, and rally the troops and all this kind of stuff. And it's a killer, it's a killer when you believe you're on the cusp of something and it's taken away from you. And like God knows, none of us know when we're going to be in a title race. Nothing is given. The only thing that's given in this league at the moment is that Man City generally are going to be in the title race. There's no doubt about it. The rest of us kind of have to figure it out as we go along and stuff like that. So really, really difficult. But I just wonder, you look at that Arsenal team last night, again, Gabriel down on his honkers, absolutely devastated. They didn't put in the performance that they wanted last night. We will talk about it later. They should have went with the counter-attack. They shouldn't have tried to match them man for man right from the get-go. They should have tried to figure out the game, let the game unfold in front of them and then react to it and see what way it was going to go. They kind of played into Pep's hands in terms of rocking up to the ground, all kind of bulgy, all full of testosterone, wanting to go out there and do that. And they just played into City's hands, basically, but we'll see what happens. Acers. Sorry, where am I? Acers. Newcastle will destroy Arsenal in 2 weeks' time. Interesting. We'll see. I'm proud of that team. Yeah. And listen, and you should be. And it's really, really, really difficult. And look, we know better. As Liverpool fans, we know better than anyone this whole City thing. We've brought them to the end game of a season twice now, and it hasn't happened. We were 10 minutes away from winning the league last season. And Villa just, whatever happened, between Villa's capitulation and Pep's just absolute drive to win in terms of what he did in that last game last season said a lot, you know what I mean? And again, everyone can talk about, they can talk about oil money, they can talk about all that. When it comes down to that 10 or 15 minutes and you have to do something there in that dugout to get it done, they get it done. And that's the difference. That is the difference. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But look, everything is about winning. And when you have a chance, you need to win. And it is disappointing. Mark's in. Big up, Mark. How are you? How's everyone doing? Tough last night to watch. Did better with Diaz on, though. Yeah, absolutely. What did you make, Mark? What did you make of Klopp's comments in the presser? Like, he seemed big up on the performance. I kind of was watching it now. I was watching a number of games, but certainly watching the Liverpool game. It didn't come to me as being a performance that was heavily in control and stuff like that. I thought West Ham had their chances. I thought it was a tough game, for us. Ravi's in. How are you, Ravi? Big up. Good to see you there in the chat, mate. Good. It's the first time I think I've seen you on. Nice. Welcome to the show and all that good stuff. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell notification button. We always go live. We'll have to see if Trent stays in the middle with any new signings we get. I think it's kind of nailed on at this stage, isn't it, Mark? I don't think it's going to change. What did you make from Mark? I don't know if you caught the start of the show. I was talking about Trent. His work last night in that DM role as well was really, really good to see, with Fabinho pushed on a bit more. I thought he was really, really good, breaking up the play and all that other good stuff that he did. Ravi's in. I hope we buy players and not to make shift things, slotting in players in just because we don't buy. I think we're going to get a combination of that. I think there's no the old mascots just come in. How are you, buddy? I don't think, Ravi, I don't think we're going to be able to get away for that. I think that's just going to be a given. I don't think we can avoid it. So I just don't think he's going to be given the money to bring in 4, 5, 6 players. I think at best we'll probably get 3. So he's going to have to figure out some of the stuff that he wants to do. Afternoon, Ravi says, Mark, yo. Mark's back in. Still a massive struggle to get 5th or 6th place. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, and you see how good Villa and all are playing, and Brighton is there as well. They stuttered last night on the disappointment of the FA Cup, but still could have a chance. Ravi, how are you, Mark? And then Cheapy, congrats to Sheffield United and John Egan on promotion. Absolutely. Big up to Sheffield United. We'll be talking about it tonight. And Burnley, hats off to Burnley on winning the championship as well and getting promoted. Fantastic. And I tell you, the playoffs are going to be absolutely electric. Mark is in. It was okay. Just 1 second to get to the store. It was okay. Still not convincing. Tempo still poor. Drive is off. Yeah. That's what I kind of thought. I thought we were kind of. Yeah. That sums it up perfectly, actually, Mark. I didn't feel it was that performance that we were talking about, or that the gaffer was talking about after the game. I looked at the game and I didn't think. I was actually quite shocked even at the possession and stuff like that, because I thought we would have created a lot more in the possession that we had. Mark's in. I'm good. Thanks, Ravi. How are you? Oh, good. And Ace was in. Jota was off it last night. Yeah, he was definitely off it. And we've kind of seen it, even though in the last 2 games he's gotten his goals and stuff like that. You can see he's kind of played 80 minutes or whatever it is, but he's really only been up for it in about 30 or 40 of those minutes. You know, he's kind of either played one half or the other. Last night he was kind of somewhere in between. He was somewhat involved, but not like fully involved in one half and less involved in the other half. I think we got 2 halves last night that was more of the same, as opposed to the kind of the breakout performance that came in the latter halves compared to the first half. So please, can you check out Anfield Uncle Rod's on YouTube? A great channel that would love to get you on his channel. Absolutely, Ravi. If he wants me on, just tell him to hit me up and stuff like that. And absolutely, Ravi, if you have a link to the channel, drop the channel in the chat there. Absolutely, now, and I'll subscribe right after it now. Again, anyone as well who's on the channel, go and subscribe to Uncle Rod's as well. Yeah, good to hear it. Great stuff. Mark, not bad, just making dinner. Nice. That's what I want to hear. I always love that. Thoughts on Andy Robbo? I would drop him as he's being poor. We need a left back to give him competition. Yeah, I suppose the conundrum there at the moment is he's tried that, hasn't he? He's taken him out of the team when he's looked absolutely banjaxed, and also when he hasn't performed. But the problem is he's brought in Costas, who has actually this season, funny enough, who we thought would be, a real good backup for Andy Robertson and compete with him. We seen it last season how good Costas was at times when he came in. But this season when he's come in, he's actually looked awful. He's looked way off and nowhere near the level that we need. So that might be part of the Robbo drop-off this season, where Robbo knows he's going to be played even if he's poor, because he knows that Costas is kind of worse when he comes in. So that's the conundrum there on that left side at the moment. And depending on the formation, again, we go back talking about transfers. We talk about the formation. You have to establish the formation first before you start dropping the eggs into the basket and the positions where they're supposed to go. So the question is, next year, are we going to go with 3 centre? Are we going to go with three centre backs? Or are we going to go with those wide men? What's the change with Trent? If Trent goes in there, are they going to deploy a right back? Is he going to be really like a new midfielder? It's hard to know. But certainly Robbo. But I think with Robbo, I think he'll come back a better player next year. I think just in general, the weight of expectation. He's captained the side a couple of times this season as well, and it hasn't worked out for him. But no lack of spirit and no lack of energy. But I think sometimes you just hit the wall, you get tired, and he's had a real difficult season. And like I said, when Costas has come in, he hasn't looked like a number 2 really at all, has he? Arsenal really felt a bit, hoping City would mess up. You're not going to get City messing up, are you? They're just relentless. And Arsenal have fallen off. Yeah, they've absolutely fallen off. There's no way they would have been thinking, 3 points from those 3 games. Not at all. Not at all. And especially with having 2-0 leads up in 2 of them, But yeah, I was hoping they would take it a bit further. My gut feel tells me, and let me know in the chat what you think, guys, but my gut feel tells me, really tells me that, I think City will be Fulham at the weekend. And then they'll take top spot. And I think once they take top spot, I'm expecting Arsenal to fall away with a couple of results based on the disappointment. And I think probably with maybe 2 or 3, maybe 2 games to go, maybe 3 games to go, I think City will be champions. That's what I think will happen. It's not easy. It's not easy, And look, we know, we're Liverpool fans. We know exactly what it's like trying to hunt these guys down. You have to be at such a level of performance. You have to be absolutely at perfection. Draws and losses, forget about it. You're just out of it, The disappointing thing is, what's going to win it this year? Probably 90, 93, maybe 94 points. Again, and we look at those totals we've put up in the past, and we couldn't do it. Would make Robbo the next captain. Would you, Mark? Yeah, you'd make Robbo next captain. Interesting. Good shout. Let us know in the chat, guys. What do you think? Who would be next captain if Hendo's kind of taken out of the picture or becomes more of a bit part player and we need a more regular captain out there on the pitch? Who would be your choice of captain? Mark's going for Robbo. Not a bad shout at all, Mark. Don't know. Would anyone fancy Trent? I always like I like the whole midfield captain because you can be involved heavily on the pitch both ways, with your forward and your backs and stuff like that. And also, I don't know, if you look at Trent's turnaround in the last 3 weeks, I don't know if you elevated him into a captaincy, would you kick him on that other level again? Let's see what happens. The only thing about Trent is I don't know whether he's, what could I say? I don't know whether he has that kind of that presence on the pitch, the way Robbo will get up in your face kind of thing and stuff. Not that Trent wouldn't, but I just don't think. I think he's just a little bit not softer, but you know what I mean. He's not as harsh as Robbo, let's say. But interesting. Anfield Uncle Rod's on YouTube. If you guys could like and subscribe, we will. I'll head over there after the show and definitely drop it. And everyone on the channel, head over to Uncle Rod's there and drop it. Absolutely. What do you think has happened to Virgil van Dijk? He doesn't seem himself. I think Virgil next season will probably come back as a better player. I think he's had a tough season. I think he's come back off some injuries. He hasn't looked himself. He looks as if he's lost a yard of pace. He hasn't looked as controlled at the back. You'll notice in matches as well, he hasn't been as vocal with people. I think in that middle half of the season, right after Christmas and stuff like that, right up as far as kind of, say, the start of March, there's kind of people have been looking for excuses because of performances and what's happened. I wasn't impressed with last night either in terms of standing off Bone and showing him onto his good side. Normally Virgil would be more cleverer than that. But I think the problem for Virgil is Virgil's come in. Kanate got injured. He was his partner. The partnership of both of them last season was really, really good. Although Joel comes in and he's a good substitute defender who comes in, will always do a job for you. But I think for Virgil, he's had to deal with Kanate being in, going out injured, Matip being in, going out injured, Gomez being in and not exactly what he should be and stuff like that. Sometimes performing really, really well, and you think there's a player in there in Joe Gomez, and then he plays in the next game and he looks like, no disrespect, Scarborough or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just, that's the way it is. I'm not too sure what way it's going to go with Virgil. I do think next season, I think he'll come back better. I think he just needs an off season. Um, there was a lot of talk since January as well that we were going in for Vardiol. That's normally not a good sign as well. That's a worrying time for defenders as well when we're out looking for a central defender. There's talk of Joel moving on and stuff like that. We'll have to see if that happens or not. So I think there'll be big changes in that defence. But again, I always say it stems from the root of the situation, which is what is going to be the formation? How are we going to play? Not just a question of just buying bodies to drop into certain situations. Let's have a proper plan in place about how we're going to push forward and bounce back next season. And of course, if we could get top four, that would be a massive bonus this season as well in terms of who we want to target and who we can convince to come in. I know people will say, look, it's Liverpool, we're huge, the legacy, the history, all that kind of stuff. We are. But players these days look at a lot of stuff these days, and being in the Champions League is a massive thing. Morris, that's why I don't think Odegaard should be our captain. Yeah. Who would you have in there then as Captain Morris? Who would you put in there at the moment? Who's vocal enough for you? I just hope we don't sell too many players as we still need some depth. I know it will be hard to do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've an unfortunate situation where we're kind of caught in a bind, aren't we, Mark? Because we have a number of players that are coming to the ends of the contract. Obviously, Naby Keita, Arthur Melo's going to go back. Ox is going to move on. So these guys are all going to move on. So that's the situation that you have there. So you've already got a gap forming there. Now the question is, Stefan will obviously come back in. Is Ben Doak ready to step up? And some of those boys from the lower ages and stuff like that, are they ready to step in there? If Quivine moved on, does Harry Davis, I think it is he ready to step in? Is he ready to make that leap? Or do we have to go out and, I know we were looking at the keeper off Anderlecht and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that stuff to be ironed out as well. But I think we're going to see a very different Liverpool in some respects next season. And I think this is what Klopp is doing at the moment. He's gone through the last 6 or 8 games of the season now, and he's doing a squad assessment. That's what he's really doing. He's looking at players now and he's going, do I fancy him? Do I not fancy him? Is he going to be able to do it for me? If this guy comes off, is this the guy who's going to be able to step in and keep the level at a certain level that we need and stuff like that? You know how hard it is to win this league, you know what I mean? And you have to be at a very, very high level. You know, you can't, no disrespect to anyone, you know what I mean? But you can't be taken off, and I know we haven't seen him, so it's unfair to judge him. But you can't be taking off Trent and putting on Calvin Ramsey. I don't know how good Calvin Ramsey is. I know he was very good at Aberdeen, and we haven't really had a chance to see him, you know. You can't be taking off you can't be taking off Mo Salah and bringing on, you know, another player or something like that. You know, you have to maintain a certain level to remain competitive. Ravi's back in. Will Carvalho play next season, as he is someone we are crying out for? He's what we need, in my opinion. Yeah, the Carvalho situation is a kind of a weird one because no one kind of knows what's happened. He's come in and he's played well. Got that late winner against Newcastle back in the early stages of the season. Played well and scored, I think, against Man City. Looked all right. And then suddenly just fell off the map. You know, was a bench player. Then wasn't even on the bench. Then came back in. You know, being kind of used for the last 5 minutes of the odd game here and there. I don't know what's actually happened there. And then there's a lot of talk going around at the moment. They might put him out on loan and stuff like that. I think he's kind of been hard done by us, hasn't he, really, when you think about it? I don't like the way Carvalho's being treated. He was a super baller for Fulham. He was instrumental in them coming up from the Championship. What a season he had down there with Mitrovic. It was unbelievable. And he came in and I was thinking, here's a young lad coming in who's going to be fearless and he's going to have a right go. And what I liked about him as well, I thought he was coming in, and at times where Curtis's forward play isn't what it should be, I thought Carvalho might be that guy who could come in and give us that real positive thinking and have an eye for things as well. Certainly showed in the Championship, which is a tough league. So I don't really know what's going to happen with Carvalho. The talk is he's going to go out on loan. I think if he goes out on loan, what is that a kind of an omission of, you know? And especially where we're going to have pockets in our squad now, as Mark said earlier, that are going to open up. is this the right decision for him now, or what should we be doing? But it's just a real conundrum. Henry's in. How are you, Henry? Afternoon, all. What's the crack? All good. Big up chat. Absolutely. Make sure you're subscribing to Henry's channel as well. I think I'm on Henry's channel tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. So make sure you check that out. We'll be on at 6 o'clock chatting all things Liverpool, no doubt. And Mark is on. Afternoon, Henry. Yo, Mark. Morris is in. Partey or Saliba? Someone to lead and control from the middle. Yeah, Partey, although you look at Partey last night and all, and you see him, like, you see when Grealish put it up to him, like, and he froze, you know what I mean? Because I don't think he was expecting Grealish to react, and, Grealish is one of those guys that looks like he'd be a soft centre guy, but say he could have a right pop if he wants, and he grabbed Partey last night by the scruff of the neck, and Partey nearly died. I don't know if you caught that. It was absolutely crazy. I don't know. Saliba is a very good shout, I think. Absolutely, and look how you missed him. Look at how you missed him. You know what I mean? It's amazing, isn't it, when you don't have the squad like what City has and stuff like that. You can take just one player out, and things just get really imbalanced. And no disrespect to Rob Holding, he's come in and he's been reasonable. Took his goal well last night as well, in fairness to the lad and stuff like that. But just when you've been playing and doing so well with a settled back line like the way you have had, and then you lose a guy like him who's been instrumental to your success this season and stuff, it just knocks you for six, doesn't it? And just people just looking around, who's that guy who's going to, do it for us? Mark, depends how much funds we will be allowed, as we can't change too many players in one season. Yeah, that's true, Mark, absolutely. And I wonder, the thing about it now is if you look at 200 million, and 200 million always seems to be that figure that's bandied around. But if you're looking at 200 million, let's say, what are we talking about out of that? 3-4 players maybe, at a push, so you drop 3 or 4 players in there to freshen it up, and then you decide what you want to do. Milner's probably going to move on as well. So we're not going to have necessarily that backup in there that you can rely on. You can throw Jimmy on for 15, 20 minutes. He'll do a solid job for you. He'll get stuck in. He'll break up the play. He'll kill the game off and stuff like that. So it's an interesting one. It's a real dilemma for us at the moment, what we're going to do. And again, keep on stressing this. How we want to play and how we want to set up is going to dictate where the money is spent and how we can move things around. But great point, Mark. Great point. Acers, Trossard, when he starts, Arsenal play a lot better. Trossard should be starting. How is Saka starting every game after being so poor the last 3 or 4 games and stuff like that? And this is when you look at some of these results now, and you look to Arteta and you think about how has he managed these players. You always have to play your best players who are in form and stuff like that. It's a real difficult one for him and stuff like that. He could have gone somewhat different last night as well. He could have found a way to maybe include them. There's various things he could have done. He could have put Sanchenko's energy into the middle of the park last night and played Tierney at left back and stuff like that. He had a couple of options there of stuff that he could have done, but I think it was just a weird one. I don't know. I'm all in on Trossard. As Liverpool fans, we know how good Trossard is. Make no mistake about it. He was a fantastic signing for them and stuff like that. And they just needed, that game was calling out for a guy like him. And you see him when he was in there and stuff and Holding getting the goal. But Henry's in. I'm good. Niall got wet. Someone forgot to flush. Got wet. Someone forgot to flush. Mark, Carvalho might be more available next season, I suppose, or go on loan. Might be time to loan out Jones too. Would rather keep than sell. See, that's the issue, Mark, that we're speaking about, isn't it? That if you decide to loan out Carvalho, who steps into his place? If you decide to loan out Jones, who steps into his place? Who becomes the guy? Like if you loan out Jones and loan out Carvalho, and you've got Thiago in there, and Thiago, we know, is more than likely going to get injured. He's not going to see out a full season. We'd be shocked if he did, right? So if he does, then what's the problem there? You don't have Carvalho to slip in there. You don't have Jones to slip in there. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to buy a left-sided midfielder. And is that the thing to do? Do we want to progress Jones? What way does it work? Then who's on the bench? So I think the way they managed, we spoke about this before, and the way that they've managed Matip over the years in terms of being so injury prone. We know how good Joe Matip is as a player, but we need to keep him super fit all the time. So we kind of have to manage his games. I know they changed around through sports science. They changed his diet, they changed his training, they modified a lot of different stuff. So that makes kind of sense. Thiago, they're going to have to do the same thing, because you can see very simply, even the slightest little knocks he gets, he doesn't recover from them that quick. It takes a lot longer. So when he gets a slight knock, it's a month that he's gone. Can we afford to lose a month of that creativity, and who comes in? And that's the conundrum when he's looking at putting players out on loan or whatever it is. Can't leave himself short. But great point, Mark. Great point. Uncle Rod's in the house. How are you, my man? Big up, bro. Your channel has been recommended to me by a fellow Red. I've hit the subscribe button, also like the video. Love it. I'll drop over onto your channel as soon as I'm finished here. Big up. I've seen some of your content and stuff like that. Absolutely love it. So big up. Delighted to see you in there, mate. And welcome. We've formed this good partnership. We're all Reds. Tough season, but we'll get through it. And as we do, and bounce back next season with a big season. And of course, let's see what the gaffer does. But make sure, folks, anyone in there, head over to Uncle Rod's Anfield, Uncle Rod's channel, and drop a subscribe on it. All the support we can give to fellow Reds and stuff like that. Absolutely. Mark, still think City should have had points deducted this season, being under investigation. Yeah, they're talking about that investigation taking 3 years. They reckon there will be no solution to that investigation until like 2025, 2026 or something like that. So in the meantime, they can just keep on going and doing what they do. What happens if 3 years' time, like if you're an Arsenal fan, what happens if 3 years' time? Now, listen, we're Liverpool fans, so we know we've a card in this game if this all goes to crap, basically, But what happens in 3 years' time if Arsenal fans are looking back on this season, and let's suppose they lose it by 5-6 points? And we find out these irregularities that are in there, they should have been deducted 15 points and thrown down into the championship and all this kind of good stuff, Be absolutely mad. It's an absolute sickener, And you hear fans coming out and going, oh, no, we don't want to be awarded those leagues, or we don't want to be awarded those trophies. We don't want to get things that kind of way and stuff like that. It's just a weird conundrum. A weird conundrum, Mark, isn't it? And look, I agree. If there's issues there, I don't know why it takes so long. But they'll wrangle it up in the legal process. We've seen who they hired as their legal team, so this is going to get messy, and it's going to be long drawn out, as they say. And in the meantime, City are potentially this season even a treble. You know what I mean? So imagine how United feels if City do a treble, with all the background of this financial irregularities and stuff like that and all, you know what I mean? It's just similar to the Italian League. Look at the Italian League, Juventus getting their 15 points back the other day, and all of a sudden the pressure's on the two Milan clubs in terms of even making it to the Champions League, even though both of them are in a semi. It is a mad world. Henry's in. Hi, Rods. Yeah, absolutely. And Mark, afternoon at Anfield, Uncle Rods. Yeah. Absolutely. Can't wait to have you on my channel tomorrow, Niall. It will be a nerve-wracking one. Won't be nerve-wracking at all. It'll be two Liverpool fans having a good old chin wag, sit back and relax and chill out, and we'll have a good time. No need to be nerve-wracking at all. You'll do a great job, Henry. And Morris is in. Have lost all the games lately when Trossard hasn't started. Jesus coming back hasn't made a difference. Yeah, and I think the talk back when he did come back was that he was going to lift the team and stuff like that. Everyone, be like getting a new player in and stuff like that. He was going to lift it up, bring that experience and all. But even when you looked at it yesterday, remember when he came off yesterday? And the City fans, in fairness to them, hats off to them. It's not often I'll give them a lot of respect. But they did give him a great ovation and stuff like that. And of course, you're always going to be happy to give an ex-player an ovation when you're winning and stuff. I wonder if it had been 2-2, would have got the same as the reception. But he walked off and he was getting a good reception. But man, his body language. Go back and look at that if you get a chance again. When he was walking around the perimeter of the pitch, come back after the substitution. Check out Jesus' body language. He was like a child that lost its skateboard. Man, it was crazy. Crazy stuff. The body language for me is key. You seen it at the end of the Southampton game. You seen Gabriel yesterday. Just devastated these guys. And to lift yourselves up. Imagine going into training today as an Arsenal player. Would rather start Elliott over Jones. Might bring in midfielders to start or even as a backup. Yeah, it's a fair point. The only thing I always worry about Elliott, um, no lack of skill, no lack of forward thinking, all good. Tidy little ball player and all that. But the issue is when you go into that midfield and you come up against the likes of a Rodri and stuff like that, it's the physicality of winning that battle. And I think what Elliott should do over the summer is maybe do what Trent did maybe a summer or two ago, get into that gym and put on a few pounds on a bit of strength and stuff like that and build yourself up a little bit. You don't have to be a big, huge guy to have that physicality in the midfield. Look at how strong Lionel Messi is on the ball and stuff like that. But I think with Elliott at times this season, he's come in and he's just been taken off the ball a little bit too easy. But I think the chap can build up his physicality. And remember, he has all the other attributes that you look for that most players don't have. So if he can just up his physicality, I think he'll be absolutely fine. But great point, Mark. Yeah, being over to it. Yeah. City will just draw it out as long as possible. Yeah, no, they will. Yeah, and look, it's understandable because this is gonna when this comes out, this could be if this is proven and this comes out, this is going to be crazy for the Premier League and what has to be done and stuff like that. And, whatever about whether history is rewritten, if it's not rewritten, it'll be rewritten at the fan level anyway, you know what I mean? So it does look, I know it's very hard to take moments away. That Aguero moment when they won the league and stuff like that, very hard to take that stuff away. But if that kind of slur is in the background and it's proven that it's in the background and stuff like that, it's sort of, you've got City there at the moment trying to build up a level of history and stuff like that and lineage there, like what Liverpool has and United has and Arsenal and all these other teams, stuff like that. They have to build that up. It's very hard to build that up if it then becomes tainted. But the longer it goes, the more years you're adding to the list to look at. Yeah, true. But I don't think in the end, what do we think is going to be the result? The result is going to be a really, really heavy fine. Probably a massive points deduction, probably a demotion down a league or two, pending who'll have them. We've heard that some leagues aren't open to even taking them in. But what would be kind of cool would be is imagine how competitive the Premier League would be if City weren't there. If you scoop City off the top of the league over the last few seasons, and I know the last few seasons they've been head to head with us and stuff like that, and then there's been quite a gap and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely, it's unreal when you think about it, what could come out of it, isn't it? It's just crazy. We can't even think of all the different parameters of what might happen if this stuff was proven. Ace was in, City fans were singing to Arsenal fans last night, you bottle league at Liverpool. Yeah, that's mad, isn't it? You know what I mean? And it's like you think about the Arsenal game, like normally Arsenal going to Anfield in any given season would be happy to get a draw. I know they were 2-0 up and stuff like that, but it's just a different level, isn't it? Just a different level. The Kieran 1000 is in. How are you, my man? As a fellow Irishman myself, good content. I'm happy with the progress of Trent and Jones in recent weeks with two more midfielders, one of a defensive-minded player and another goal scorer, assist maker. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of where we're sort of summing it up. And then I suppose depends what happens with Gomez and Matip as well, in terms of what we need from defensive side of things and all. It's kind of weird, isn't it, the Nat Phillips situation as well? Like Nat can't get a look in and stuff like that, And the one thing Nat gives you is he's 100% in, isn't he? He's that old school Terry Butcher way, slice his head open, put a bandage on it, it's all good, you know what I mean? But let's see what's happened. But certainly, yeah, very happy with what's been happening over the last number of weeks. And of course, winning and getting that bit of consistency always helps as well. Last night, at times, it was a little bit of a struggle. It always is against West Ham. We made hard work of the Forest game when we really shouldn't. Just ended in chaos, as the gaffer said. But yeah, let's see who he brings in and who else he can unearth and stuff like that. And remember, don't get too disheartened this summer as well. There's a lot of free agents out there at the moment and stuff like that could really come in and bring that bit of quality not only to the 11 but also to the bench and stuff like that, And we know Tielemans is going to be out there potentially on a free. He might not be exactly what you want into your 11, But certainly having a guy like Yuri Tillemans on your bench is an option, and to rotate him and be able to use him to bring in Tillemans if you want to, if you want to switch it out with Thiago and manage Thiago through a season and stuff like that, if that's the way you want to go, certainly would be a real good option, Rabiot, we know at Juve, if we can just sort out all the kind of bullshit with the mother as the agent and stuff like that, could be a really good option. Had a really good World Cup. Obviously disappointing not to beat Argentina, but he was one of France's top players in the World Cup and stuff. And those boys would be dying to get out of Juve the way things have gone there and stuff like that. So let's see what's happening. We can get cooking, yeah, absolutely, Kieran. We certainly can. And hopefully we do. Just make sure, folks, you're subscribing to the channel, hit the bell notification, like on the video, all that good stuff, and make sure you're doing it for all the channels in the chat as well. Support everyone. Let's keep on growing, not only our community, but all these communities out there. Making content is tough work, and with Liverpool, of course, when we're involved in so many matches, we're pushing it all the time. Mark's back in. Be tough for our last few games. Wonder what will happen. Still issues at the club. Hope it's all sorted for next season. Still had no other investment yet in either funds or shares. Yeah, I think it will happen. I think the FSG investment is a kind of an interesting one as well, isn't it? Because it's not like kind of the situation that you see at United where it's in the headlines every day and in the papers every second day and stuff like that. I think FSG in terms of investment and stuff go about it in a different way. Now, who's to say that they don't get in the investment that they've been talking about from Singapore and stuff like that? And if they bring that in, how much of that is going to trickle down in terms of arriving at Jurgen Klopp's desk to sign players and stuff like that? But I assume with John Henry being over and the talks of what's needed and, the meeting with the gaffer and stuff like that's being made very clear. Let's be honest here. Jurgen Klopp didn't extend his contract to become a guy who's just taking part FC. He wants to be at the high end. He wants to be challenging for stuff all the time. So let's see how that goes. But certainly we got an interesting few weeks ahead. We'll be doing a preview on Friday for the Tottenham game, either Friday or Saturday, but keep an eye out. You will see it there. I will be back tonight, 9 o'clock Thursday, Tier Talk. Darren will be on with me. We'll be going through all the results over the last 2 days. We'll be keeping an eye on what's happening tonight because it's obviously pivotal. We'll be previewing the weekend. We'll be dropping our tips and picks for Beat the Bookie. We'll be talking about the takeover at United and Ratcliffe's other option that he has suggested. And we'll be talking about a number of other news headlines, stuff that we'll certainly be talking about Chelsea. Thursday nights on the upper tier. And on Thursday, Tier Talk is always a section dedicated to Chelsea at the moment. Good Lord, what a mess they're in. When you think about the season we've had, we're now up to 6th. Potentially, let's see what can happen. But look at what Chelsea done. Imagine if we spent 600 million and we found ourselves in that mess that they're in. As Cundy said last night on Talk Sport, if there was 12 or 13 games to go, they'd be in a relegation battle. Imagine spending 600 million being overtaken by a new owner and ending up in a relegation battle. Good Lord, imagine that. Ravi's in. Yes, Kieran. Big up, Ravi. Mark's in. Just don't want asset stripping for the funds. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think that's going to be the case, Mark. I don't think, yeah, I know what you mean, yeah. Sell Salah and buy Chiesa kind of thing. Yeah, no, it's some of those thinking that does be mad. When you see some of those reactions, especially when we get a few poor results and stuff like that, it's Salah has to go, we need Chiesa, and, this player has to go, we need Barella, and it's just out the door. It's crazy stuff, but look, it's just reactory, We've had a real good time over the last, in the Klopp era and stuff like that, and there's people involved in this era now that are kind of a little bit new to it and stuff like that, and they haven't felt the pain of us guys, especially me as a more of a vintage fan, if you like. I've been following Liverpool since 1978, so I've been on the 30-year march for the league and all that kind of stuff, and I've had to sit back and watch United do their thing, watch Chelsea do their thing, watch City do their thing, watch Arsenal do their thing. I've watched us having to buy 3rd, 4th and 5th choice players who should have never even got in the gates of Anfield, even if they had a ticket. But that's just the way it is. But yeah, you're spot on there, Mark. That's not the way this can go. And I think that was probably the concern a few weeks ago as well, if we're fair chat. The concern a few weeks ago would be that not only we were in such a bad place, and if we didn't get champions or we didn't get European football, and there wasn't the investment coming and promises had been made, not only would we be looking at certain players to get out the door, but would the gaffer be getting a knock on his door from Konate? Would he be getting a knock on his door from Mo Salah? Would he be getting a knock on his door from whoever to say, listen, this is not for me anymore, I need out of here? And then we'd be in a real big problem. So yeah, but spot on, Mark. Ravi's in, thoughts on our scouting? Is it good enough for what we need? The whole scouting thing is an interesting one, isn't it? Because when you look at Brighton and you see what Brighton have done, and you look at Brighton as well, and you look at their hit rate, bringing in the boy Evan Ferguson. Of course, we're Irish. I'm Irish, so I'm going to talk up Evan Ferguson. Absolutely super player. After extending his contract there to 2028, delighted that he did that as well, because I didn't want someone to come in and absolutely jump all over him into a big, huge move, and then the pressure of that, and he kind of falls and stuff like that. I want his development to continue and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a kind of a weird one, isn't it? Because you look at kind of where we have knocked it out of the park at times with some of the players we brought in, Bobby, Mane, Salah, players like that. Obviously, Virgil we knew, Ali we knew, but Robbo is the key one that kind of stands out, brought him in. Buttons, really. Kevin Stewart went there, and he became arguably the best left back at one stage in the world and stuff like that. So I'm not too sure, but then you look at some of them that have come in, like Keita obviously sticks out. The Fekir one that kind of fell apart last minute because not the need, the brother got greedy. But yeah, it's the scouting one is kind of a weird one because we haven't seen the scouting one is kind of, it's a weird one because you only have to turn on Sky Sports, or you only have to turn on any of the channels or any of the content creators. I mean, you look at the guys on Copish, you look at the guys on any of them, like the Anfield Rap, Redmen TV, any of the bigger channels and stuff like that. They kind of have a plethora of suggestions on players and who they could go in for and stuff like that. So the scene is kind of set. And we're normally fairly quiet in the way we go about our business, you know what I mean? But just with social media, the way it's gone, and with the information out there and how it leaks and stuff like that, it's very hard to do it nowadays, isn't it? It's very hard to, like, Fabinho on his way to Man United and 2 days later signs for Liverpool. A lot of that doesn't really happen anymore, you know what I mean? I know we moved for Luis Diaz because Spurs had moved from and stuff like that, but we're normally quite dare I say, we've become quite obvious in our movements in the market, and some of that is probably, we lost Michael Edwards, of course, who was a huge part of that and stuff, and obviously Julian Ward moving on to Ajax in a similar role and stuff like that. So there's been a little bit of upheaval there, and then the head of the analytics department as well is moving on, or has moved on at this stage and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that stuff in the background as well we've been dealing with all season, and then the talk has come out like how much power does Pep Linders have and Jurgen Klopp have in influencing these situations. And of course, we remember the story that apparently they didn't want Mane and they didn't want Salah, that apparently they wanted Goretzka and Götze and all this kind of stuff, and that comes out and stuff. And I kind of think sometimes we need that little bit of control in there to see it. I mean, 3 weeks before the season started, we didn't need a midfielder. Very quickly then we did, So sometimes you don't always see it, But yeah, I don't know. It's scouting for me is a kind of it's a weird one, Mark's in, we need new agents to the scouting process. Yeah. Listen, if you look at what Brighton's doing, we could do a lot worse than go scouting down South America and stuff like that. Look at Concedo. What did they sign him for? Was it 3 million? And he's on like $4,000, $5,000 a week. Now they're looking for 70 million for him. You know what I mean? Look at the money that Brighton's doing. Look at what they're doing. It's what we need to do. We just need to go to Brighton and get their scouts. Let's not mess around. Going, listen, do you fancy a job one of the biggest clubs in the world? Let's go Liverpool. Maybe that's what we need. Or we need to get a scout down there quick. For the stream. Yeah, absolutely. Anfield, good afternoon at Mark Forrest. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, very mannerly here, aren't we? Good afternoon, guys, and stuff like that. You go on to some of the shows and lads are just tearing into each other. See y'all, big up chat. See you later, Henry. Good man. Kyle is in. This ain't gonna be pretty. Hi Niall, what did I tell you, mate? We haven't the balls. Arteta out would be fucked. Yeah, look, Kyle, look, I told you, mate, I feel for you. I feel for you. We've been there. I've been there. Uncle Rods has been there. Henry, Mark, all these guys. We've all been there. Wrote the book over the last 5 years and trying to rein that team in. I told you right from the minute go, right from the start of the season, you got to put your foot down on their head when they're in the swimming pool and keep their head underwater as long as you can, because all of a sudden they come out of the water like we spoke about during the week, like that shark, and look at what they do. It's just, it's it's hard to like it, isn't it? But it's hard to deny it, isn't it? Like you can talk about all the money. You can talk. Look, they brought in Haaland, and everyone was saying, kind of, what's he gonna do? Kyle, I listened to Arsenal fans outside the ground last night before the game talking about what had City got. All they have is Haaland and De Bruyne. If that's the mentality, what more can I say? Because if that's all they think they have, they are absolutely deluded. But look, let's see what's going to happen. There's another, whatever, 6, 7 games or whatever to go. Anything can happen. Who knows? Haaland could get an injury. De Bruyne could get an injury. Anything can happen. That's the beauty of football. It's been crazy this season. Just look at the bottom half of the table, how it's changed so much in the relegation battle. Absolutely crazy. Kieran's back in. The forward options are very good. We need to match that in midfield and defence. Spot on, Kieran. Spot on, absolutely. And you know something that I'd like to see as well, Kieran? If Queeveen goes, and I hope he doesn't, but if Queeveen goes, I'd like to see even Allison with more pressure on him and stuff like that and all. At times this season, he's just been a little bit laid back and a little bit lackadaisical, and I think that's kind of the comfort of knowing that he has that spot tied up. I'd like to see someone come in and challenge him, you know. It was great last season and refreshing to see Queeveen taking part so much in the cups and stuff like that and all. But yeah, great point. Absolutely. Our midfield and our defence has to match our forward play if that's our ambition next season, but absolutely. Kyle in, Arsenal fan base are in the gutter, mate. Yeah, it's kind of, isn't it so weird, isn't it? Like, I mean, Kyle, you're like me, you're a long time Arsenal fan. So you've seen it all. There's nothing you haven't seen. There's nothing that anyone on social media can come on and tell you about, you know, how great you were and how great you should be and what should be happening and what your ambition should be. Anyone like Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Man City, all these teams, all the traditional top six. And listen, you can include Villa in there as well. You can include a lot of these clubs in there as well. Chelsea, Villa, Spurs, all these teams. Their goal every season should be to win silverware. There's only 4 pieces you can win if you're involved in Europe. So there's only 4 pieces you can win. So you have to go for it. And I just think the fragmentation in the fan base in terms of what is described as a successful season. And I know you have to take a lot of things into account at times to look at that as well. But they set the bar at times so low, isn't it? And many times do we talk on this show when people talk about players being world class and they're bang average. And we talk about the market that's out there at the moment, and you're paying 50, 60, 70, 80 million for players that are bang average. It's a madness. Absolute madness. Still don't think Haaland will stay at City. Yeah, and I think Pep probably recognises that as well, and I think he's come in. What he's going to do is he's going to give it a good shove. We know why he's been brought in. He's been brought in because they really want the Champions League, and you know, would you doubt them at this stage? I know they have to get over Real Madrid, but I think if they get over Real Madrid, they might be there or thereabouts. But I think I agree with you on that. But I think if you look at the way he's playing, you've seen it last night, 33 goals. He's after overtaking Salah. And I think he has, 49 goals in total for the season. He's an absolute machine. But when you think about it as well, when he comes out of the side and you bring in the likes of a Julian Alvarez, like Julian Alvarez has come in and had a real good season as well in the shadow of Erling Haaland. And it's interesting to see as well, when Haaland doesn't play and Alvarez comes in, they play a totally different style of football, but the transition is absolutely seamless. And that's where you have to get to. That's the level at which you operate on. Look at how he changes out that midfield at times. Not a problem. Look at the defence he's played with this season and how he's had to change it and stuff like that. It's absolutely crazy. But that's the level that you're up against at the moment. And you either match it or you just become taken part FC. That's it. Anthony Duncan, Rod's facts, yeah, absolutely. Kieran's back in. Facts, Kelleher's 24 as a keeper. That's like being 18 or 19. He's proper with his feet and great shot stopper. I say we loan him out for 2 years and bring him back to bed, yeah, to bed him in, if in effectively. Yeah, that's the thing. I think the thing with Quavine as well is I don't know whether Quavine will want to go for a loan move. If you look at the situation there at Southampton, the two of them in terms of the Ireland situation, Bazunu, and they're going head to head, and it's really there's not much in the difference really between them. The only difference is obviously Gavin is playing on a weekly basis for Southampton, and even if you look at how bad Southampton's season's gone, I'm telling you now, without Gavin Bazunu, Southampton would already be relegated. You go back and look at some of those games they've lost 3 and 4-0. They could have been 7 or 8. Bazunu has been man of the match in some of them. And having him and Kelleher there, Kelleher's obviously fine for that Ireland position as well. It's mad to think we're so blessed with these goalkeepers that we have in the Ireland situation at the moment, and they're fighting it out and stuff. But I think Kelleher will want to go and play football now. Is an opportunity going to present itself for him at a decent team at the level that he wants to be at? Remember, you're not going to go from Liverpool to going down into the bottom of the division to become a number one and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You're seeing Gavin moved from Man City, I think it was, down to Southampton and could find himself very quickly in the Championship the way things are going. So with Quavine, if Quavine could orchestrate a move, say, to Spurs and go in there, if Lloris is going to move on or something like that and become that number one, that could be a good move for him. He could also be an option for Chelsea. We know Chelsea, looking at the way things are panning out with Kepa and Mendy, could he go into Chelsea and be that kind of keeper and stuff like that? I think he could. I firmly believe Quavine Kelleher is the best number two keeper in the league. Without a doubt, the best number two keeper in the league. I do hope we hang on to him. I just wonder, does he want to stay in that shadow? And that's the only thing. But I think if he's looking for a move, I don't know whether it will be a loan move. What it could be actually, guys, is it could be a sale with a negotiated buyback, like what Chelsea have done in the past. Maybe that you sell him at 20, 25 million, whatever he's going to go for, with a guaranteed buyback of in around the same figure or something like that. Let's see what happens. But I'd love to see Quavine getting a chance playing week in, week out to really see what he's absolutely like. But when he's come in, he's been brilliant for us. I see it as a stepping stone for bigger clubs. Yeah, absolutely. And then Aces is in, the Volcanoes in the house, the Wexford Volcanoes in the house, Kyle. Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. Look, we'll be talking more tonight, there's no doubt about it. Mark's in at Kieran. We do have better kids coming up though. Yeah, we do. We do indeed. And look at Stefan this season. He's had a breakout season, and unfortunately got injured. But again, it was kind of a weird season for him as well. At times himself and Harvey, we were so poor, they were carrying the team. Liverpool Football Club was looking to 18-year-olds or whatever it is to carry the team at times, and it was kind of a weird situation. Is Kelleher definitely going? I think he's looking at his international career, Uncle, and he's looking that he wants to get into that Ireland squad. He wants to cement that position in goal, and Bazunu is a very good keeper as well. And I think I'd say probably the situation is he's being told you're going to have to get first-team football and more first-team football. You look at Allison. Allison could have another, 5, 6, 7 years in him there. Is Kelleher going to sit there for the next 7 years as a number two? Now I know at times Allison might pick up an injury or something like that and Kelleher comes in. But it's kind of like it's not really a competitive situation, is it? Because Allison can get injured and Kelleher can come in and Kelleher can be doing really, really well. But normally what you see in goalkeeper situations is that the goalkeeper who comes in, if he's doing really, really well, he keeps that position until he loses it. But that doesn't happen really. We've seen Kelleher being absolutely unbelievable for Liverpool, and the next thing he's out of the team and Allison is back in. So I don't know if that real competitive situation is really there. And that's what I would like to see, because I do think Allison, when he operates at such a high level and stuff like that, that bit of competition in there, if we had proper competition in there in that goalkeeping situation, the level that Allison would hit would be unreal. But yeah, I'm not sure whether he's definitely going or not. The whispers have been going around that he wants more regular football. Maybe he can figure out something with the gaffer. Who knows? Let's see what happens. Again, the problem is if he does go, he's going to have to be replaced. So do we promote the lad up that's doing really, really well down in the juniors, Harry Davis, I think is his name. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I'm not always great with the names of the lower teams and the younger age teams in there. But yeah, if he goes, he's going to have to be replaced. Now, the talk is that maybe if he goes and he goes for 20 or 25 million, that I think the Anderlecht keeper that we were looking at, this guy's a big unit. I think he's 6'8" or something like that. He's a big lad and stuff like that. He's a decent keeper as well. But apparently he's available for about 8 million. So does that give Klopp then potentially another 17 million in the coffers, maybe to boost something, to maybe instead of going for maybe a number 2 or 3 target, you might be able to get the target that you want. So let's see what happens there. Mark's in. I think he will. Wanted to go last season. I think so. And I think for his international career, he's going to need it. Ireland are going to be looking to try and push as hard as they can now. Look, they're in a group of death. But let's see what happens. Kieran, I could see us doing with him like what Man United done with Dean Henderson. I would be okay with that. Yeah, except it's kind of toxic, isn't it? That situation with Henderson and United is kind of toxic, because what happens is United find themselves in a situation where who have they got in there? Heaton's in there and Jack Butland. Now, Dean Henderson is a very good goalkeeper and stuff like that, but his frustration at the way things went and his outspoken nature has meant that it's going to be very difficult for him to return there. He kind of threw a lot of situations there under the bus. David De Gea is in there at the moment, and where he's a really, really good goalkeeper, at times he just lacks something that they need in terms of his footwork, in terms of how Ten Hag wants to play. Now, does Dean Henderson give you that? I'm not too sure. But if they have to go into the market for a keeper, that's quite a slice, out of his transfer budget, and something he probably wasn't counting on. Hang on 1 second there, guys. Just let the mascot in. Yeah, where'd you go? Yeah, there we go. Mascot. Keepers do tend to retire a lot older than outfield players. They do. And you see, that might be the problem as well. Because the problem is Ali ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So what Queeveen's looking at is he's going to be stuck in that situation maybe for another 5, 6, 7 years. And the reality is, as we said, once that situation's there, it's not really a competitive thing, because if Alisson goes out, either through form or injury, and Queeveen goes in, we know once Ali is back, he's going back in. No matter how good Queeveen performs. I mean, look at how good he was in the Cups last season. Kieran at Mark Forrest, that's what I mean, fella. 24 for the goalkeeper is like 18 or 19. Hopefully we keep him via loan or at least buyback clause. I think he's a ready-made replacement in the future. He absolutely is. Absolutely is. It's the one position. Do we have any other position, lads? Here's a question for you. Do we have any other position in the squad where if a player gets injured and we bring a player in, I never feel any nervousness or anxiety about it? Like if I heard today that Alisson had picked up an illness or had picked up a knock or whatever it is from last night's game, and Queeveen will be playing on Sunday against Spurs, it wouldn't bother me at all. It absolutely wouldn't bother me at all. I wouldn't be worried about it in any way, shape or form. And that's how big up I think of Queeveen, and not because I'm Irish, but when you see when he's come in, he's been absolutely brilliant. And there's some people out there would even argue that Queeveen, in terms of his ability with the ball at his feet, could be slightly better than Ali's. At times when you look at Ali, his footwork at times can look slightly a little bit awkward. Whereas Queeveen always seems to be a bit more controlled with the ball at his feet and stuff like that. But that's probably the only one. Kieran's in Gakpo, Nunes or Diaz, Jota, I think is the only other positions. Yeah, and you think about it, if you think of most of this season, Diaz and Jota have been out, so we haven't had that option. But now that they're back, we do have that option, and that's why we're able to do the bits that we're doing at the moment up front and stuff like that. But that's the only situation in it and stuff like that. Like even, it's hard to judge those four that you mentioned there, Kieran, because Gakpo is still relatively new and he's trying to find himself in a kind of annoying position that probably was not on his radar or on his thinking when he was coming in. I don't think Cody Gakpo, when he was signing for Liverpool, was sat down and told, you're going to be the next Bobby Firmino. I don't think that's what was on the cards at all. But but Diaz and Jota, yeah, absolutely. But again, even so, if you look at both those guys, absolutely, and you're spot on. And I think it's the same. It's the same with the goalkeeping situation. I don't get too concerned, you know. Um, Mark is in. Striker Doak is one of the best backups we have. Yeah, potentially, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of him next season. Hopefully that will be the case. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. He's a very exciting kid and a really exciting prospect. And you know, at times when he's come in as well, it hasn't shirked him at all. He's been absolutely fine about it. Mark is in again. I still think Gakpo was a panic boy. Interesting. He certainly, I suppose, when we looked at it on the face of it, he certainly wasn't the player that we thought we would be bringing in terms of what we needed. Because at the time we were looking for midfielders, or were we? But certainly, I don't know whether he was necessarily a panic boy, but I think he was kind of a strange boy in terms of it wasn't. I suppose at the time as well, when you look at the injuries that we had, we were kind of light up front as well. So it kind of somewhat made sense. But I think we all said at the time when we were doing the podcast that when he bought Gakpo, we gone, that's great now. Just bring in a midfielder and that'll be an okay January window. And of course, we didn't do it. So that was the real problem with it. But yeah, I get your point, Mark. Very true, mate. I didn't see it coming at all with Gakpo playing 9, but he's doing a brilliant job. Give us another option for sure. Defenders have a horrible time figuring his movement. Yeah, and I think, you know something, the deeper he drops, which is a kind of a weird thing to say when we think about how Bobby's career evolved at Liverpool. So many people talk about the return in terms of the goals, but when you think about Bobby Firmino has been instrumental at making Mane and Salah a star. He's been the most giving, the most generous forward player I've ever seen in terms of, creating situations for other players to make them look unbelievable. And Gakpo is an interesting one as well, insofar as I don't think Gakpo will be as generous as was Bobby used to be or was. And I don't want him to be. I want his figures and his stats to look really, really good as well. And I think you'll get a lot of that. I think in one of the games back, I'm not too sure which one it was. Was it the Forest one or the one before it? I'm not too sure. I was saying when I was watching the game, I'd love Gakpo to be a bit more greedy when he picks up the ball. And then you see it there last night. He picks up the ball, makes a run and lets fly. And you can see there the goals that he can score. So I really like that about him. I want him to kind of become a little bit greedy, not always wanting to just play other players in. But obviously pick his moments and the right moments when to do it and when not to do it. I think Bobby at times is so over generous when you look at Salah and you look at Mane. Look at a lot of their goals and look at where they came from. Gakpo as well is an interesting one. As he drops deeper, he looks actually better because when he picks up the ball, he's able to run at players and he's able to go by them and glide by them and stuff like that. He has a huge stride as well. Again, he's another player maybe in the summer I'd like to see him put on just a little bit of size just to get that Premier League sort of physicality about him and stuff like that. That's probably the only thing he's missing, but he looks a brilliant signing and stuff like that. Wouldn't be too upset about him at all. Mark is in. I think we were looking at him and United sniffing and injuries. We took a stance and got him. Yeah, I think that was part of it and stuff like that as well. But I think it was more the disappointment of not getting a midfielder in there with him is what we fell short on. But I take your point fully, Mark. Yeah, I mean, look, we were all sitting down, we were looking at a game, and the next minute, Gakpo signed for Liverpool. Everyone thought he was nailed on going to United, even though United in January hadn't got a washer, but they thought that they would find the funds for it. So that was an interesting one. But yeah, 1 minute he was going to United. Look, we've seen it with Fabinho, we've seen it with Thiago, we've seen it with Luis Diaz with Spurs and stuff like that. Sometimes that's how we do our business, Right, folks, listen, I got to jump off. I've got a few things to do today. And then, as I said, I'll be back at 9 o'clock with Thursday Tier Talk with Darren. Join us there if you can. As always, subscribe to all the channels out there. Great to see Uncle Rod's in the chat and Kieran and all that Ravi and all those guys in there. Look forward to chatting with you in future shows and all that kind of stuff. Again, lads, if you want to drop your chats, drop your links for your channels in the chat as much as you want. Spam it to bits. I don't mind at all. Absolutely, really enjoy these shows. Do you guys think we can top 4? It'll be a mountain to climb, but United and Newcastle have same points. Way I look at it is we're chasing one team with double the games, so more opportunities. I do hope we get top 4. Top 4 would be absolutely huge for us. Huge considering the season that we've had. And look, let's see how the results go tonight. I was hoping Spurs were going to do us a favour, but let's see how things go. Folks, I'll talk to you again real soon. I'll be back at 9 o'clock with Thursday Tier Talk. Hope you can all join us. Subscribe to all the channels, hit the bell notification, and drop a like on the video and on all the videos that are out there. Talk to you again real soon, folks.